You're listening to Artistic Finance, show 162. On today's show, we talk with lighting designer Carolyn Wong about her freelance career based in New York. We discuss investing in yourself, keeping living expenses low, and the sustainable hustle of freelancing. Without further ado, let's get to the show.
You are listening to Artistic Finance, where we help creatives learn about the business of show business.
Welcome and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Ethan Steimel. We're recording this July 31st, 2024, and the latest news is that England's worst knife attack against children happened this week. 3 young girls have died at the hands of a 17-year-old rampager, and the girls were 9, 7, and 6. And they were in, of all things, dance class. And so for all of us that have been involved in dance at some point in our lives, of all the things that we would expect to happen in a dance class, getting slashed is not one of those things. But in more positive news, Kamala Harris, the current vice president in the USA, is running for full president of the USA. So that's the snapshot of our time and place in history. And today I welcome to the show lighting designer Carolyn Wong. Carolyn is currently the worldwide associate for The Lion King. And while that's cool, I also have to mention that Carolyn was also the assistant designer on one of my favorite Broadway shows that I've ever seen, Spider-Man: Turn Off the Dark, which is known infamously for having a huge budget and losing $60 million. Like, I know. I if I were one of the investors, I would not be like thrilled.
But it's earned its place in history.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're connected to that show. So while, yes, you lost X amount of money, I mean, maybe it was worth it.
I mean, it's taken its place in history for, various nefarious reasons. Did you see the show, Ethan?
I did see it during previews, pretty well into previews. Because how long did previews last?
Officially a year. There was a regime change where they ousted Julie Taymor and they brought in a new director. And so they continued to be, quote, in the preview process throughout all of that. And they officially opened with the new incarnation.
I feel like I saw it in March, but I was thinking it was maybe like 9 months in. So I don't know, there was a spider woman who flew from the audience at the point I saw the show.
Was there a dance about shoes and the spiders with shoes?
Yes, there was that crazy dance.
That you saw the Julie version, yes.
Yeah, that was that was bizarre.
Yeah, as a full disclaimer, I only worked on the load-in, and so I only saw them on the beginning part of that process. And many, many months later, checking, and they were like, the assistants on that show, Caroline Chow and Vivian Leon, were like, we have seen every single preview.
I mean, I had a seat like way up, and so I could like see into the pit. I have this pet peeve. It's not a pet peeve, but like when you're really high up and you can see the floor and then magical things are happening with the floor. If you're high up, you don't get the magic.
That's true.
I feel like even part of that crazy dance, the floor was disappearing or whatever, which was cool. But if you saw it from the floor, it would be super cool.
Even better. Yeah, absolutely. I teach at NYU, and one of my students, sorry, short digression, but like one of my students was like, I saw the magic sheets. They were amazing. And I said, I made those magic sheets. They were like, do you remember the really big LED ramp that has like a bajillion channels in it? I was like, yes, I do. I put all those numbers in. And then I said, do you want to know that they turn them all on at the same time? So,
all right. So I've mentioned that you're a lighting designer. What else should we know about you?
You should know that I'm a Californian, as in I was born in San Francisco, California, which colors a little bit of my personality. Slightly weird, I guess. And I went to Oberlin College in the Midwest. Also colors my personality just slightly. And while I was there, I was a math major. I think you already know that, Ethan. But I studied math and East Asian studies, and I have a minor in theater and dance from there.
Amazing. All right. Oberlin, I should know this since I recently have relocated to the Midwest. Where is Oberlin?
Oh, it is in the south, like southwestern corner of Ohio. So it's 40 minutes west of Cleveland. It's in the middle of the cornfields and the apple fields out there. It is like a little 4-block campus, formerly a dry town.
A dry town.
When I was there, that's
could still be. I don't know. The Midwest is a strange place sometimes.
It's wacky and wonderful.
Okay, I also have to mention that I was a production intern at Jacobsville Dance Festival in 2012. You came through as a lighting designer with Morphoses and Lee Saar. And I said, hey, I'm a lighting designer and I want to move to New York. And can you spend time with me? I'm desperate for attention. And you did spend time with me, for which I am grateful. So thank you, Carolyn.
I should say that I was returning a favor because in 1998, I was also a production intern at Jacob's Pillow. And that's where I met somebody who would be my mentor for the next 5 years. So I am very grateful to that place for the sort of the boost and the ejector seat that they gave me out into the production world.
I love that. That's amazing. All right. So now, Carolyn, to get to know you a little bit more, your creative personality, what is a live event that you like to experience as an audience member?
Okay, this is very topical and maybe relevant, but the opening ceremony of the Olympics, did you watch this, like the YouTube clips or any part of it? It's phenomenal. I was like the horse galloping down the Seine. Like, what was that? What kind of like creative madman came up with that? I was flummoxed. I was like gobsmacked. I love the idea of the water parade. I wish I could have been on a boat observing that event.
Wait, so do you like all Olympic opening ceremonies, or was it this one in particular?
I think this one in particular. I haven't seen very many of them. I mean, they're every 4 years. It's kind of like, do you tune in? Do you not? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't usually, because now everything's behind a paywall and I don't pay for it, so I have to watch it.
And like YouTube clips. Yeah.
Yeah.
My parents do the same thing.
And this year I did the same, even though I've heard, everything about the lasers and the lighting was so amazing, but I haven't actually watched the clips.
It's great.
Great work, lighting designers.
And listen, it's preserved. It's preserved, in the cloud. It's going to be there for you forever.
Well, this morning, we don't watch the Olympics really, but this morning Simone Biles did her routine anyway. So my wife and I watched it and we're both just like weeping at the end of it because the audience was like so into it. And it's like if you go to see Hamilton or maybe even Lion King, and like the audience just is so happy to be there, right? So you're like, even if you don't like the show or whatever, you can appreciate that there are so many people that are just so happy to be there.
Yeah, it's almost like a Taylor Swift concert. You know what I mean? There's just like the enthusiasm in an entire stadium. I mean, I can't imagine that kind of energy.
Okay, Carolyn. All right, now for a tougher question. Are you bad or good with money?
This is a tough question for me. And I think I alluded to it earlier, and that is, I'm good with money, but almost too good with money. I have a weird relationship with money. I don't want for money. I have enough money. But I think I'm bad at spending money, and I think that's an issue. And I was hoping that we could maybe discuss that a little bit more.
You had mentioned when we were setting this all up that you're like, oh, I can talk to having saved too much or saving too much. And I didn't know if that was a joke or not, because you're a funny person, as in like humorous, like you have a good like sense of humor. And I didn't know if you were joking or not, because that's nothing that anybody has ever said to me on this show. Oh yeah, let's talk about saving too much.
Okay, this is like a hard one to discuss, right? Because it comes from a place of like, listen, I have to acknowledge it, a lot of privilege. When I say saving too much, I think I am actually saying not investing in myself or my life enough. Like, where does all this extra money come from? And I think that for me, in my circumstance, it comes from working a lot at a job that compensates me well, and then not finding the time or other places where I could be spending it. And I should also reframe this and say, like, I made a lot of choices based on my career. I am a single childless woman by choice. Like, my partner and I decided that we were not going to have kids, and that was driven a lot by both of our careers and how much we earn in them. We just like, this does not make financial sense to us. Like, I love you, but also having kids is not going to be for us. So like we made that decision. So like sorry for all you guys who have kids. Like, so that financial drain wasn't there. I'm not worried about saving for college or my kids' like health and stuff like that, which I know is a primary concern for a lot of people. So like once you take that off the table, and it just makes it pretty selfish. But now what do you do? And as you mentioned, I am the worldwide lighting associate for The Lion King, which has been a fun ride, let me tell you. But it occupies like a lot of my time. And so there's a part of me that wishes too that I could develop my career more as a lighting designer. So I have this wonderful safety net with this job at Disney, which I love. But also I wish that I had taken some more risks and taken some jobs that were perhaps like less lucrative, or gone out and just sort of like that scary diving board and sort of like leapt a little bit more into the freelance lighting designer lifestyle. But I'm back here with my safety net. I'm back here with Lion King. So that's where I am right now. That's when I like look in the rear view mirror, I go, what other choices could I have made? What's my level of comfort? Do you think that could I have navigated that just a little bit differently? So I have like a different balance between the job that provides for me and one that is really creatively fulfilling. So
that's amazing to hear, because I look at your career from outside and I'm like, wow, Carolyn has such an amazing career. And then to hear you say that is just interesting. And also you're saying, looking in the rearview mirror, well, you're only a certain age. So all I'm saying is there's still a lot ahead of you. So you still have time, just something to think about.
I keep on saying like, I'm not dead yet. There's still like plenty of opportunities. But yeah, I didn't have kids and I didn't go to grad school, which is another one that I don't know in today's climate whether that is a pro or a con, but that means that I've also lived my life without a lot of student debt.
Right. I mean, my 2 cents on grad school is that if I were to do my life again, I would not go, because to me, it's like 3 years of your life off the table. And yes, do you learn stuff? Do you get to practice some intellectual stuff? Blah, 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 blah. Sure. And maybe make contacts if you're from somewhere like the Midwest and you're just totally like, that's crazy to move to a place and just start working. I need contacts. So there are reasons for it. But overall, I figure the 3 years going and working would be a better option.
I mean, I really found, like, as you know, like I came from Jacob's Pillow, and like the intern experience was invaluable. And part of the reason why I did choose Jacob's Pillow way back in the day is because they provided room and board and housing for us. So even though we didn't really earn a lot of money, it was kind of like a net zero summer, as it were. And in the Berkshires.
Yeah, exactly. And the beautiful landscape, the mountains. Yeah, amazing. So I just want to ask more about Lion King, just logistically. Because you're the associate, are you full-time? Or are they all like per contract? Like, is every new version that you work on or something, is that a new USA contract for that specific show?
It's a weird hybrid situation, actually. So I have what is sort of an open-ended contract, and there are 9 productions of The Lion King running worldwide currently, and I am part-time. So when I work for them, they pay me. When I don't work for them, they don't pay me. So for example, we have a new production that will be opening in Toronto in the fall. So I'm in the middle of preparations for that, and a new production opening in Mexico City in March of 2025. So when I prep, they get billed, but there's usually some good chunks where I'm not engaged in any work. And so that gets filled with hopefully freelance work.
Okay. And then just schedule wise, have you ever like not been available, or did they ever try to do like 2 openings at once and you can't be in 2 places at one time? Like what would you do if you couldn't do it?
Well, The Lion King actually has a pretty deep bench. So in addition to myself, the original associate, Gene Koenig, is available to do calls. The original assistant, Marty Vreeland, is also available. So like between the 3 of us, also we have a UK associate. Like we have so many people at the ready who can sort of jump in. So there have been sort of like overlapping things. And like right now we are in the middle of many equipment upgrades worldwide, because The Lion King is a long running show in many jurisdictions, and those moving lights are failing, baby. They are failing. So we're swapping those out. So we can be in the middle of production for something and be swapping out lights somewhere else. And we've got different teams and programmers who will go attend to all of those needs, production needs.
Got it. So, but I assume you're like the first And then when you're like, oh, I'm busy, then you go back to the bench.
Exactly. And I'm sort of responsible for scheduling everybody. So I'm trying to allocate our resources around all the different productions based on the scheduling availability for the year. I'm kind of like the lighting project manager.
Yeah. Well, since you majored in math, you're good with numbers and schedules and databases and all that.
I think I have like a little like quantitative side of my brain that is very comfortable operating. Like it's pretty linear, very quantitative, doesn't deal with humans very well.
I disagree, but okay, that's me. But maybe I don't deal well with humans either. So now I want to go back to like before you got into lighting, growing up, did you have a good financial example?
I would say yes. My parents are very like financially conservative, but like maybe we should back it up even more. My mother's side of the family, like my grandparents I had Depression era grandparents. And so my mom is like a boomer born out of that. And on my dad's side, I have immigrant grandparents who immigrated from China. So they have like immigrant mentality. And so you combine the two of those together, and I have some like wonderfully financially conservative parents who, above everything else, really promoted spending one's money wisely and conservatively. They were never in debt. We were the kind of family who, I like to say, we are a family of leftover eaters. Like, there's some families and they don't eat leftovers. We always ate leftovers. We never ate out. They're just very responsible. Like, we were a camping family. We love going camping. You learn what is essential when you go camping. Like, okay, I just like being in the woods and taking walks, making s'mores.
And you eat out of the cooler.
Yes. We bought it at the grocery store.
Okay. So then when you started your career, I guess out of undergrad, what did your finances look like at that point? Were you like, I got this?
I was a little bit like, it was a little bit, like for everybody starting out, or at least I assume for most people starting out, it was a little bit scary. I was really lucky. My parents paid for my liberal arts education. So I graduated with no debt and a little bit of savings left to me by like an aunt who had passed away. So I had like a little bit of money in the bank account, and I had done the internship at Jacob's Pillow, and I felt like I had enough contacts to like reach out and have a pretty, robust freelance career, at least in the dance community. I was lucky. I had a friend who had graduated from the University of Chicago, and while I was at Bates Dance Festival being an assistant production manager, he was in New York looking for an apartment for us. And he found us a 3-bedroom apartment. Okay, this is ridiculous, but like a 3-bedroom apartment in Hamilton Heights for $1,100 a month. So we each paid $550 a month. And it was incredibly affordable. And like we were able to make it work, which was awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. So like out of school, did you just went straight to New York then?
I went straight to New York. The sort of terrible thing is I graduated in May of 2001, and that means I did my summer dance festival, and I moved to the city on September 1st, 2001. So we moved into our apartment, and I was waiting on the stoop of my apartment for the electricity man to come and like turn on the electricity on September 11th. So again, moved to the city in weird times. Everything kind of like shut down for a little bit, and then it slowly rebounded. But it was
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay, all right. So do you worry or think about money on a daily basis?
I would say I don't worry about it too much. I definitely think about it. Like, what are we doing this? Can we work a little less? Can we schedule this a little less?
Also, actually going back to, you were talking about like, I've had a good career, I'm single, so like I don't spend enough. When you say that, were you talking more about like freelancing as an LD or doing that more? Or are you like, I should take more vacations because like, why have I saved this if I'm not doing that?
I think of both of those things. One, I think we should all be taking more vacations and taking more time for ourselves and building stronger connections with our friends and family. My family lives in California. I see them maybe once a year, which makes me a little bit sad now that I'm older and my parents are getting older. So I think about that. And then the other part about like, just how about like, what about the continual reinvestment of ourselves? Like, should I be taking some more classes, learning some more, like trying to upskill a little bit more? When we did that panel at LDI in November, I realized, oh, there's all these like interesting software that I should be learning about. How about that?
Also, that episode is coming out next week. So tune in next week for that exciting panel. But that panel it's the same thing for me, like Capture. Like everybody's using Capture now. And Ebony said something that at the time I didn't pick up, but in the editing of the show, I realized. She said they literally have 20 YouTube videos that are the tutorial of how to use the program. Each one is 1 minute long, meaning you can learn that program in 20 minutes. I mean, it's slight exaggeration. Some are 3 minutes or whatever. But I did. I went and watched like the first 7 videos in 7 minutes. And I'm like, oh, I can totally do this. So I've started to, but it's the same thing for me. I feel like the last 10 years of my career, I haven't learned any new skills other than like what I've just had to out of necessity.
I agree. There's just so many dimensions of this business, and to sort of like go down one branch and not explore the others, I think it's short-sighted. So I think there's a lot out there.
Also, you mentioned that getting out of college, you didn't have any student loans. I'm just curious, like right now in your life, do you have any debts?
No, I was, again, like privilege begets privilege. So I graduated from college, no debt. I was really lucky. I saved and was able to buy a really inexpensive apartment in Queens a couple years after moving to New York City, and that kept my living expenses really low. To this day, I've been able to sort of save a decent amount of money, and that has sort of prevented me from experiencing large debt loads.
Awesome. I love it. And also, have you ever used a budget?
Yes and no. Like, I have to say, like okay, RIP Mint, but there used to be the personal budgeting app called Mint, which I loved because it aggregated all your finances and your debt and your credit card debt, and you can see exactly where your money was going. I've since adopted a new one called Monarch, which I look at regularly. But I feel like budgeting for me is always a bit of a strange thing because I'm constantly on the road, and like my spending on things fluctuates depending on whether I'm home. Like, okay, so if I'm home, I spend a lot of things on Amazon because I notice that my apartment needs things. And then when I'm on the road, like I spend a lot of money on food, and it's just like, I don't know. It feels like a little bit like whack-a-mole. Like there's nothing that's ever consistent about it. So budgeting on a yearly basis makes sense, but then why am I monitoring it? I don't know.
Okay, I like that you mentioned Monarch because yes, RIP Mint, but Monarch is one I either have an account or I looked into it and then I just decided like I'm not going to do anything.
Wait a minute, you don't do anything anymore?
Well, okay, I have an Excel document.
And then do you import stuff into your Excel document from like
No, I just manually plop it in.
Enter?
Yeah.
Don't you
But I'm not doing it like daily or anything like that. And I'll do it maybe, well, now that I had a kid, it's like once a year at best.
Oh, okay.
But now you're reminding me, I'm like, oh yeah, I had started with Monarch and then I never finished setup. And now I'm going to go look at it again.
I mean, I just find that those apps are very useful for also at the end of the year when I need to aggregate everything to send to my tax guy. Like I still have an accountant who files my taxes because I'm a freelancer and I just would prefer not to have the IRS scrutiny. But I just like press a button and I'm like, oh, look, there it is. Send it to Ed.
Okay. So yeah, I manually entered all. I gotta change my life.
Perhaps simplify.
I did the thing where I used to do it once a month, but like at the end of the month, I'd be like, I'd go through the credit card and put the thing in where it needs to go. Now I do it like at the end of the year.
Did you see the stunned expression on my face? And maybe it's just because I don't know. I feel like there's so many small picayune purchases that I don't want to have to enter those. Like stamps, keep that. I don't know.
I know. All right. Yeah, I am crazy.
Everybody's got their ticks. You just got to like follow the road.
But you mentioned that you have somebody that files your taxes. Off the top of your head, do you know how much you pay them to do that?
Ooh, it depends on how many states that I need to file in. So it ranges between $550 and $650 a year.
Okay, all right, that seems typical. I did a survey once of like how many people, and I was paying 750, which was like at the higher end of the range. I think now ours is at like 900.
But you guys are also married filing jointly, right?
Correct.
So that's more complicated.
That's true. I never really thought about that. Yeah.
That's a 2-for-1.
What did I try this year? The TurboTax. I tried it because my brother was like, he was like, Ethan, you're crazy. Like, so easy. Do it. And so I was like, all right, he's convinced me. I'm going to do it. I logged in and it puts a timer and it's like, it's going to take you 2 hours to get through this. So the clock was still going at hour 17 and I still had Arizona and New York taxes to deal with. And I just gave up. I was like, going back to the accountant.
I know, just do it.
Which if my accountant is listening, I never was going to leave you. Thank you so much.
You're the best. I know. During COVID, I signed up to be one of those like tax assistants, like when at a tax clinic that was run by CUNY. And the software that they use is basically TurboTax, but anybody can use it. You can just go online. Like the e-file these days is really remarkable. But I send mine to an accountant.
No. And now that I've tried it, like the itemizing, it said I was going to pay $5,000. And then when our accountant did it, we got money back. Okay. All right. What is the best financial thing that you've done that you think other people could learn from or emulate?
I would say if it's possible to keep one's living expenses low, I think it really gives you a lot of freedom to do other things in your life. You feel less pressure to take certain jobs. You don't feel like you are crawling out of debt. If you can figure out a way to keep your rent or maintenance low, I think it's a great springboard to open up a lot of different possibilities for everybody.
I love that. Because also you mentioning the choosing not to have children, etc. I remember John Lee Beatty was the same thing. He was like, yeah, I'm in good shape right now, but I also made a lot of choices like not having a dog, not having kids, like,
not having a dog,
getting the apartment. But it's true though. It's true.
I didn't even think about that. I haven't even thought about the fact that I've rejected having a pet.
Yeah, and the logic is solid. I totally agree with it. But he was like, I can like pack up and go somewhere like the next day if I need to. So if I need to take a show at the last minute, I can. And
not worry about pet care. I have a lot of plants. I guess I have plants in lieu of pets. We've got them an automatic watering system, so they're pretty self-sufficient.
Fancy. Okay. Opposite of the previous question, which is, what is the worst financial thing that you've done or a really bad thing you've done that maybe other people could avoid?
So I'm going to say, I think it's the reinvestment, to be honest. I think the worst financial thing that I've done is not take the risk. It's not about taking the risks, but I think I think that I have not reinvested in myself and my career. And I would like to see my career as something that is a tree blossoming on all of the branches. And I feel like maybe there's only 1 or 2 branches that are green right now.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that is a good reminder. But maybe it's just on my mind lately too, of like, oh yeah, Ethan, like you still need to go take classes
or like just taking the time to like reconnect with some of your earlier collaborators and making those social connections and reminding people that you're still out there. And it's like all this other, like, I don't want to call it side hustle work. It is work to maintain one's career, I think.
No, yeah, it is exhausting because I remember Ken Billington when he was on, he was like, oh yeah, you go socialize with all of the collaborators and people and you go out to eat at like the place and then you see them and then they offer you a job, and it comes like naturally.
Oh, to somebody like that, absolutely it does.
But to me, it's like I have to fight tooth and nail to like even send an email sometimes to be like, hey.
I know. I used to work with somebody and he said it's always better to be in a theater and seen than not in a theater. And I've always thought about that because he was like, oh, at least when you're in the theater, you're hanging out with people see your face, they're reminded that you're still working. I was like, oh gosh. And then I know somebody else who's just really proactive about asking people out to coffee and just, reconnecting. And when you have an easy connection with somebody, of course, that's going to be somebody that you reach out to again.
That's true. And also like going back to at Jacob's Pillow, and I was like, Carolyn, talk to me. And you're like, sure thing, because somebody did this for me, which I didn't know until now. But I just yesterday met up with Heather Gilbert. She's going to be on a panel. She's going to be on an Artistic Finance episode anyway, but I just reached out and I was like, hey, can we like meet up blah, 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 blah. More of the story is Heather was like, of course, like, let's do it. But that was like me going out of my way to be like, oh, Heather's in town. Let me work around her schedule and reach out. Saying all this to say, like, it is exhausting to do that as much as I even wanted to do it.
It's still labor, but you did do it, and see, that is fantastic, and that's what we should be doing more of. Like, everybody needs more of that.
But also, like you, Carolyn, totally willing to do it. The person who did it for you, totally willing to do it. Heather, totally willing to do it. These people are all willing to do it. So if anybody's listening now and they're like, I don't know anybody, I'm not connected, and whatever, it's like you literally just email them, because everybody wants work. So their contact information is readily available on the internet.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I like to tell people the story of how I got my first job. And then that's when we had phone books, and I just called people's studios and I was like, I'm interested in working for you. Let me know if something opens up. And that's actually just the way it works. You just have to let people, like, you've got to tell the universe that you're out there and you're looking for work.
Yeah, that's amazing. So let me say it out loud now, because I'm back to freelancing and I'm not in academia anymore. So if anybody's listening, I have to like send a little bat signals out to the world.
You should send a little bat signal out to the world. I should send a little bat. All of us with our little bat signals.
Oh my gosh. All right. So you answered my next question, which is you said how you got jobs in the first place, but I guess now, how do you find jobs or find work?
I have to say, it's definitely been a word of mouth situation. So I feel like when I send out the bat signal, people do respond in kind. And sometimes you just need to tell the grapevine that you are available and looking for work. I have to admit that the past couple of years since the restart of COVID, like, Lion King has kind of taken over my life, but I realized that we're about to hit a lull again. And I'm now sending my bat signal out. I will be looking for work. I think I'll be emailing some people and asking people out to coffee and just reminding them that I still want to design if they've got projects.
On LinkedIn, since I'm on there, have you ever, they have this little thing, this little green.
Oh, thing that says open to work.
Open to work. Yeah. Have you ever done that?
Never. I've never gotten jobs from LinkedIn.
But have you tried, Carolyn?
That's a very good point. I think I'm old fashioned. I think I'm a one-on-one kind of girl. I'm not very savvy with my social media, like some of us, aka you.
Well, thank you for saying that. It's the bane of my existence, and I hate it all. Hashtag truth. So no, but I see on LinkedIn, I'm getting the podcast back going. I'm getting LinkedIn back going. I took a hiatus for a bit.
You moved.
But I see some associates, like big time associates, that have the little open to work on their LinkedIn. And I'm like, does it work that? And I'm also, because in my vein, I'm like, I don't think they need it. I think they're always working. So one, why are they open to work? But also, like, does it work? You know what, Carolyn? I just need to email them and ask.
Yeah, you do need to. Oh, that's great. I sometimes feel like, okay, when you're open to work, what are you actually saying? Why don't you just say, I'm interested in, like, why don't you email somebody and say, I'm interested in working for you? Or like, let's collaborate again. I don't know.
Has anyone ever actually seen that sticker and like hired you for a job? I'm going to find out. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I will say, just in case people think LinkedIn is completely useless for creatives, since I joined a couple years ago, I have had electricians contact me and I have gotten them work.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I have gotten offers on it. I have never accepted any of them, or it's never worked out in schedule world. And I'm not saying they were the best jobs ever, but it's not completely useless.
Okay. That sounds like, it might not be the most fertile ground, but it's ground. You know what I mean?
Okay. So I have two questions that you may answer or not, depending on what you feel like. And that is, how did you get your first job, and how did you get your latest job?
I got my first job. I think I worked for Susan Marshall and Company. Like, that's a dance company, like right out of college. And it was a touring stage manager position. And I got that job because I had worked at the Bates Dance Festival. Like, you can totally connect all the dots. I worked at Jacob's Pillow Dance Festival, which led me to get my job at Bates Dance Festival this summer before I moved to New York. And I met a production manager there who said, we are looking to hire somebody for a tour. And they hired me, which was really sweet and wonderful of them to take that chance on me. That is the power of just knowing people and connections, I suppose.
Which is totally normal expectation of our life. Is that
Yes.
it's like we don't actually apply to things, they just like happen.
I haven't really hired that many people in my life, but it is a lot easier when you just know folks, right? When you don't have to like open up a huge application process, even though some people say that's a little bit more meritocratic and you get more a wider swath of applicants.
Maybe, but how do you do it? Because again, it takes. This is like the thing I always complain about, and I'm like, Ethan, don't be a negative Ned or whatever. I'm always like, everything is so much work.
It's so much work, and how do I minimize my own labor too? Because otherwise, it doesn't become cost effective for me, right? Like,
and also me, like I only hire assistants like once or twice a year, and so it's like, do I put a box on my website that says like submit an application here? But then I'm only hiring one or two people, so it seems like not a good use of energy.
I 100% hear that.
But I'll
We
cut that out
digress.
because it's too like lazy feeling.
I know.
All right. Which job of yours has been the most financially lucrative? And Lapchichu hates the word lucrative in this question, but I don't have a better word for it. Like, I guess what has earned you you're the most money? Or
I'm going to also think about a better word for lucrative, but clearly this job with Disney has been for me the most financially rewarding or best compensated, hands down.
you know what? Best compensated. I'm just gonna try to remember that.
Or has offered the best. I mean, because we're talking about like monetarily, right? Like it is something that has monetarily been very positive for me. Whether it's creatively fulfilling or not, like that's a completely different story. But it helps working for one of the highest grossing musicals worldwide.
Okay. Do you have an entity like a corporation, an LLC, or are you just sole proprietor?
I'm just me. I am a sole proprietor.
Okay. And then W-2 versus 1099, how much of your income each year is either of those?
I would say 75% of my income is W-2. That's the Disney job. And the remainder of it, 25%, is 1099 freelancer income. Maybe one day that will change.
I mean, how are you? I love W-2 because like if people have taken taxes out, I'm like, thank you.
Exactly. I breathe like a huge sigh of relief. When my tax man comes back to me at the end of a year that's been very fruitful freelancer wise, it's always a sad moment. He's like, you owe a lot of money this year. And I was like, but didn't I do enough W-2? He's like, no, you didn't.
All right. Then question, do you file your taxes quarterly?
I do not.
And because I always struggled with this and do struggle with this, do you set aside money knowing that you're going to have to pay taxes at the end of the year?
No, I don't like maintain like a separate bank account just allocated for paying taxes. I just know that I got to pay the man at the end of the year.
You're like, I'm just going to save, and out of that savings, that's where my taxes are going to be coming from. Yeah.
We'll just draw it from there.
All right. So now retirement questions. But do you have a retirement plan, and what does it look like? But let me just ask you all the specific things, and you can say yes or no.
Perfect.
So do you have an IRA?
Yes. Roth.
A Roth. Oh, yeah, baby.
It's old school.
It's old school, but it's only been around since like 1996. So we're thankfully like people that have always had the option. Okay, amazing. 401k, do you have one of those?
Yes. Traditional.
I would say 90% of them are, because that's an even newer option that people don't know is available. Okay, pension. Do you have one of those?
829, yes, but believe so. Like the union squirrels away so much weird. There's so many weird avenues of money to save money, and I have little bits and boops stored away in all of those. So yes, pension. Yes, annuity.
Do you know about vesting in the USA pension?
Yes, I learned about that, unfortunately, the hard way. Like I had spent many years in USA, and I guess I had come like really close to being vested. And then I had 1 year where I was carefree, and I was like, I am not going to take any assisting work. I'm going to focus on my design career. And my contributions plummeted, and I didn't realize that I was 1 year short. Like that year cut me off, and I had to like restart the clock again.
Oh, that's tragedy.
To any of you 829 members, make sure you get vested before you have a fancy free year.
Yeah. I am not vested, just for the record. I like to say that.
Oh.
There's reasons for that. We don't need to focus on it, but
okay.
I just want everybody to know.
Yeah. Just I say if you can invest, like if you can invest early into your career with 829, I'd say do it early, get it out of the way, and then you don't have to worry about it again. But I didn't worry.
Yeah. And it takes 5 years, and there is like a gap year that can save you sometimes, like in that 5 years. I think you're allowed one gap year. Don't quote me on any of this. I have to do a whole other thing on this one. I need to get Bradley King on to explain.
Oh,
this.
that would be fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. Annuity. Do you have one of those? I don't actually know what they are.
I think that's an 829 thing. You really do need to do a Bradley episode. That would be great. Yes. I think we have one of those via 829. I think so. Sounds right.
I think IATSE has one or something, and I think it's connected through that maybe. I don't know. Anyway, okay. Life insurance. Do you have life insurance?
I don't have life insurance, and that's because I don't have any dependents at this moment. So if I fall over dead, that's really morbid. I don't think there's anybody who would particularly benefit from it, or like nobody depends on me for my money or my income. So.
And then an HSA, health savings account. Do you have one of those?
I don't have one of those.
As you shouldn't, I don't think, because we have the healthcare through USA. There might be an HSA option, but I feel that HSA is more for like if you're in a corporate job that provides you that option.
Yeah. And ours doesn't offer it. Yeah. I don't have a college savings plan, but I have a very sweet 6-year-old niece, and I have, again, like, where am I going to put my money? Like, what am I going to spend this on? Like, that's somebody that I would spend it on. So I've thought about starting one for her.
Amazing. Hey, my 2 cents.
Yep.
Having a kid. If you can get a tax break because of the college savings plan, do it, sure. But also I find like just a brokerage account.
Oh.
Is you can earmark it like personally. You can say, okay, so this brokerage account, I'm gonna put some money aside for you, and you can use it for education or something else if like education isn't your thing. I feel like it's just less strings attached, but then you don't get tax benefits if that's something that you want, like, for contributing. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents of like, if you are going to do something, Carolyn,
yes,
consider just doing a brokerage account.
And I don't have really I don't have a brokerage account. I've thought about it, but probably need to.
Okay, interesting. And then this last question is Social Security. I guess you have plans for that.
I've been paying into it for 20 some odd years. So I really hope so, but I'm not taking it out. We're not 67 and a half or whatever that is. Yeah, we're okay.
Well, it'll be like 85.
By the time we actually retire.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. And I think you answered this question already by saying you don't have a brokerage account, but maybe not. Outside of retirement, do you invest in anything?
No, this is bad. I've basically been just stuffing money into the mattress. Like, I know I need to do something more responsible. It's been a little bit difficult. Like, I'm going to say it, COVID was a really hard time to go from freelancing to not having anything. And it's made me really reluctant to put something into a brokerage account. It's like, oh, I just need to have it on hand. What if we have an incredible industry downturn? I don't know. So, but I've often thought about investing in real estate. Wouldn't that be fun? But
well, actually, you did mention, did you say you purchased an apartment?
I did.
So I guess you have that at least.
Yeah. It's a place to live. It's not
yeah.
I haven't become a landlord yet. Let's just put it that way.
And then this question, which we can choose to ignore, but do you give to charity or do you give back to the universe in any way?
Oh, I think giving back to the universe is a wonderful way of phrasing it. I do give a little, there were some things, especially, in the year 2020, when we were let's re-examine our privilege. I set up some automatic donations to certain organizations. So those are still ongoing. And I'm glad that we all took that sort of time out to sort of reassess. So yes, that happens automatically. I actually honestly don't remember which ones I give to. Every once in a while, I just see it on the bank account. I'm like, oh yeah, that's still happening.
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm a good person. Good for me.
Or
that's amazing. We had some automatic ones. My wife has one. It's a thing every January we're reassess it. Oh, is this good? Do we want to switch to the charity? Blah, blah. 2020, we actually paused them. And then 2021, we restarted again. But I felt bad. But that time I was just no, I can't.
I know it felt a little bit ironic that there I was taking the government's unemployment benefits and being oh, I think I have enough. Just let's send it back out into the world.
All right, those benefits are not very much is all I'm saying. But anyway.
Yeah.
um, let's head to wrap up here. Regarding finances, what advice would you give to someone who is starting in their career now?
To not be afraid of freelancing. I think it's a really viable path. And if you are nervous about it, I think it's also okay to take a job that can be a bit of a backbone, something that is, I call it moderately freelance, something that is recurring, that feels comfortable to you. You like when I started out as a stage manager and lighting supervisor for a dance company. And so I knew that I had these pockets of time where I would be regularly employed. And that added enough stability to my life that I felt okay about the ambiguity of the rest of the freelance lifestyle. So if you're nervous, find yourself a part-time job and build the rest of your career around that.
I love that. Because I know like when I started out, I was like worried about the freelancing thing. But now 10 years in, and granted, I have a partner who has a steady job. So
that's helpful.
Be aware of all that. But it's like now 10 years in, 11, 12 years in, that's just what I've always done.
Yes. And it's so natural, right? And, my parents were absolutely terrified for me when I started out in New York. And especially my Chinese grandparents, like every time I go home to California, my grandmother would be like, "Did you get a job yet?" It's like, "No, but I'm fine. I'm fine. You don't need to worry about me. It's going to be okay." But yeah, even if people like find like a work home, like a place where you freelance as an electrician regularly, like just a place where you feel like a regular, I think that can be incredibly stabilizing.
Yeah, well, also like I've worked as an electrician for Tom Dyer, like off Broadway. He's a production electrician.
Yeah,
I haven't worked for him for 6 years or something, but like I still have the number on my phone, and I'm always like, well, okay, if I'm ever free, I could do that.
You can jump back in there.
Amazing. Okay, so this is just for fun. Is there a question that you would like to ask me?
Oh yeah, I was thinking about this, Ethan. If you had 2 weeks, no obligations, what would you do? If you could give yourself 2 weeks.
2 weeks with no obligations. My mind is going crazy right now.
I know.
Like, okay, because the easy answer is take vacation.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And Australia is on my mind.
Yes.
Like just one of these places that like it takes a full day to get there. And then you need a recovery day, right? So
yeah.
Of your 2 weeks, you're already down 2 days.
I know. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's what I would do. Go to Australia and New Zealand and maybe Bali.
Wonderful, right? Like I was just recently in Europe and everybody like takes the month of August off. And I was like, what would happen if Americans took a month off? Like I haven't taken more than a week off at a time, like 2 weeks. What do we do with ourselves?
That's so funny about taking August off because with this, I've been revamping this podcast for episodes starting in September, and I've been reaching out to people in July and June, and some of them are like producer type, investor type people who have regular scheduled type things, and I've reached out to a couple and they've said, "Oh, after Labor Day, let's get to this," and I'm like, "That's 2 months. Like what? What are you?" But it's like because they want to take vacation and stuff, and I totally get it. They don't want to think like, "Oh my gosh."
I know. I have a friend who's an educator, and so she has the entire summer off. Oh, I can't. How? And absolutely needs 100% of that time to recharge. But
oh, I was going to say to work another job, but yeah, they recharge. Amazing. Also, the Faroe Islands, I've never been. They've never been on my list. But somebody we saw just took a trip there, and now I want to go. But it's like one of those places that like it's hard to get to. You have to like go out of your way. It's not like in the middle of Europe where you can do multiple things in those 2 weeks. You're like,
yeah, you just got to dedicate the time. Exactly. I hope to like really formulate a bucket list and like make a dedicated effort to like work through it. That's my goals for life.
Well, I'll try to hold you to that. I'll check in a few months and be like, how's your bucket list going?
It's not just capture, everyone. It's not just capture.
Well, that's what I wanted to answer. Like, I would take 5 days and go into a studio and learn the latest software. I wanted to try to answer that way, but I couldn't. No, I would take vacation totally.
We're such Americans. Like, Stop working.
I have a kid right now. So when you say no responsibilities, I'm like, is somebody watching the kid?
Kid,
Or is the
yeah.
kid with me? Amazing. All right. So where can people connect with you, and who do you want to connect with you?
Oh, that's a great question. People can connect with me via my website, www.wongnumber.com. You can find my email there.
That is like the best website name in existence. And I can't say it without feeling like I'm being offensive or something, even though that is your name and your website name.
I'm reclaiming it. I'm reclaiming it. It was because I was bullied in middle school and I ran for class treasurer. And the woman who ran against me was like, don't make the wrong choice. I think that's what she said. Don't make the wrong choice. Like, make the wrong choice.
I'm just like, Wong number, like you can say that. But I feel like, oh, check out Carolyn's website, wongnumber.com. It sounds wrong.
And I was a math major, right? So it all makes sense. Get it?
Oh my gosh. I can't be a part of this.
I know, it's offensive and wonderful, but yes, that's where people can find me.
Amazing. Carolyn, this was so much fun. I loved it. Thank you for doing it.
Well, I really appreciated the time to come and talk to you. I hope that people live their best lives out there. Financial lives.
That's it for this week's episode. My takeaways are keeping living expenses low. That's a theme that comes up with a lot of our guests. And it's also financial advice from other financial gurus like Dave Ramsey, Warren Buffett, Robert Kiyosaki. And as Carolyn says, it gives you more options for taking jobs rather than always gravitating to those that pay the most. Investing in yourself. What are we saving for if it isn't to help ourselves be fulfilled and be the best that we can be? It's always better to be in a theater and seen than not being in a theater. That's a great reminder about networking. Back on episode 1, Peter Kazarowski said that's how he got work. He would design and let people know he had a design running. Maybe he would go with them to see it. But whether you're in a theater to work, or you're just stopping by to check in, or even just swinging by to use the restroom or pick up a package, it's better to be there than somewhere else. We talked about college savings 529 plans. That gives you a tax deferral now in the current year for money that you're putting in, and it's tax-free for the receiver if they use it for education. That's why those plans are so good. There's a new rule this year that if it isn't used for education, up to $30,000 of it can be turned into an IRA. So I had mentioned to Carolyn just to do a brokerage account to avoid the rules, but the turning it into an IRA benefits everybody, even if they aren't able to use it for education. I had forgotten about that new rule, which I think makes the 529 plans so much better. If you do decide to open a brokerage account instead, for a minor, there are tax benefits as well if you open an account specific to your state and put it into those state funds. So you can get tax breaks without tying the funds to education. A couple times, Carolyn mentions privilege in her own life. That's something that has come up on the show a number of times, the blanket of privilege worn by many people working in theater. Now, specifically that Jacob's Pillow internship. When I did it in 2012, it paid $500 for 3 months of my life. I actually looked back in my emails and found that the internship program ran 104 days. It paid $500 total. That equaled $4.80 a day. And if you're working an 11-hour day, that made it 37 cents an hour. Though, admittedly, some of the days, especially changeovers, were longer than 11 hours. Now, in 2024, they pay for that same internship $2,500, and they offer a travel stipend of $100 to $300, which obviously it's called a stipend because it costs more than that to travel to Jacob's Pillow from almost anywhere. Now, $2,500 is definitely more than $500, but it's still only $24 a day if the internship runs 104 days. So Dance internships still have a ways to go to allow equitable participation, but there is some progress happening. This relates to last week's episode about theater work and how little has changed from the 2020 pandemic pause and reassessment to how we're making things function today. Things are better, but still a long way to go. Next week's episode, Carolyn will be back. It is the live from LDI episode. We'll talk about the cost of lighting design software, and we'll also have designers Ebony Madry from Wasted Potential, Ariel Benjamin from LDG and the Tamron Hall Show, and Danny Dutchman from Arizona State University. The dad joke to end the episode: why did the lighting designer become a great chef? They knew how to spot the perfect flavor. That's it for today. Until next time, break a leg.
Thank you for listening to Artistic Finance, where we interview successful artists, leaders, and investors to help educate and inspire the creative community. To access our show notes and resources, go to artisticfinance.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before making any decision, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Artistic Finance. Written permission must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting.